There's a serious talking point swirling around Celtic right now, and it's one that's got fans debating everything from player responsibility to how the club handles fitness behind the scenes. It all centers on Kasper Schmeichel, a name that's barely been seen on the pitch in recent weeks, but now suddenly back in the spotlight after a brutally honest update about his physical condition. And honestly, when you hear the full story, it changes the way you look at his entire season. Schmeichel has finally broken his silence, and the timing couldn't be more striking. Appearing during a Champions League broadcast, he opened up about an injury situation that's far worse than most people imagined. We're not talking about a minor knock or something that just needs rest. This is a full-blown, career-threatening issue. He revealed that his shoulder is completely damaged in multiple ways, with tears, dislocation, and structural problems all happening at once. To put it into football terms, it's like a player suffering two major ligament injuries at the same time. That's the level we're dealing with here. What really hits hard is the recovery timeline. We're looking at around 10 to 12 months just to get back, and that's not even a guarantee. There's a real possibility that he's already played his final match. When a player of his experience starts speaking like that, you know the situation is serious. This isn't speculation or exaggeration. It's coming straight from him, and you could hear it in his voice that this isn't just physical, it's emotional as well. But here's where things start to get complicated. Schmeichel admitted that this didn't just happen overnight. The issue goes back weeks, even months. He actually dislocated his shoulder earlier and decided to keep going. Painkillers, injections, pushing through matches, all of it just to stay on the pitch. And the reason? International duty was on his mind. He wanted to be available for Denmark, for the qualifiers, for the big stage. That mentality, that old-school determination to keep playing no matter what, it's admirable in one sense, but it also raises massive questions. Because when you look back at Celtic's recent performances, a lot of moments suddenly make more sense. There were situations where Schmeichel looked hesitant, especially when dealing with shots on one side. Fans noticed it at the time, but now it's clear that he was protecting his shoulder. Instead of reacting naturally, he was adjusting his body, trying to avoid impact, trying to land safely. And at this level, even the smallest hesitation can be the difference between making a save and conceding a goal. You can think back to a few goals where something just felt off. Shots that you'd normally expect him to deal with ended up in the net, and now there's context behind that. It wasn't just a dip in form. It was a goalkeeper playing through serious pain, constantly adjusting his movements to avoid making the injury worse. And that's where frustration starts to creep in, because this wasn't hidden. It was visible if you paid close enough attention. The bigger issue here isn't just the injury itself, it's how long this situation was allowed to continue. If a player is clearly struggling, clearly not at full fitness, why is he still starting matches? Why is he still being relied upon as the number one option? That's where the focus begins to shift away from the player and towards the club. Because no matter how determined a footballer is, there has to be a system in place to protect both the individual and the team. Schmeichel himself even admitted that pushing through it might not have been the smartest decision. And when a player says that, it tells you everything. Footballers will always want to play, especially experienced ones who pride themselves on being available. But it's not their job to make the final call. That responsibility sits with the coaching staff and the medical team, and it's hard not to question whether the situation was handled properly. What makes it even more puzzling is the fact that there were alternatives available. When Schmeichel missed games earlier in the season, the replacement stepped in and performed well. There were glimpses of stability, even confidence, during that period. So it's not like the team had no other option. And yet, once Schmeichel was deemed fit enough, he came straight back in, despite clearly not being 100%. That decision-making process is what's now under the microscope. Because over the course of a season, these moments add up. Dropped points, goals conceded, performances that just don't hit the expected level. They can all be traced back to choices like this. And in a title race, those details matter more than anything. At the same time, there's a human side to all of this that can't be ignored. Schmeichel isn't just any player. He's someone who's built his career on resilience and commitment. The idea of stepping away, especially with international football still within reach, is not something that comes easily. So when he talks about fighting back, about trying to return even from something this severe, you can understand where that mindset comes from. And when you take a step back and look at the wider picture, this situation doesn't feel like an isolated case. It starts to look like part of a bigger pattern that's been affecting Celtic throughout the season. Injuries haven't just been a minor inconvenience. They've shaped the entire campaign. Key players have missed huge chunks of football, others have been forced to play through physical issues, and the overall balance of the squad has been under constant pressure. It's not just about one position or one player. Across the pitch, there have been recurring problems that never quite seem to fully resolve. You've had defenders struggling to stay consistently available, attacking players disappearing for long stretches, and midfielders being asked to carry a workload that eventually catches up with them. When that keeps happening, it raises serious concerns about how player fitness is being managed behind the scenes. What stands out most is the reliance on players simply saying they're fit enough to play. In a dressing room full of competitors, that's always going to lead to risk. Footballers at this level don't want to sit out. They'll push through pain, they'll downplay injuries, and they'll convince themselves they're ready even when they're not. That's just the mentality of elite sport. But that's exactly why the structure around them needs to be stronger, more decisive, and more protective. Because when those decisions aren't made properly, the consequences show up on the pitch. You start to see performances that lack sharpness, moments of hesitation, and results that slip away. Over time, that doesn't just affect individual matches. It shapes the entire direction of the season. And that's the worrying part for Celtic, because this isn't about one unlucky injury. It's about a pattern that keeps repeating itself. There's also the emotional reaction from the supporters, and you can understand why opinions are so divided. Some fans feel frustrated, even angry, hearing that Schmeichel was thinking about international football while playing through injury at club level. From their perspective, the priority should always be Celtic. But at the same time, when you look at it realistically, international football means everything to players. Representing your country at a major tournament is something that sits at the very top of their ambitions. So it becomes a clash of expectations. Supporters want total commitment to the club, while players are balancing careers that include both club and country. In Schmeichel's case, he's a veteran, someone who knows he doesn't have endless opportunities left. That urgency to be available for Denmark, especially with major qualifiers on the horizon, clearly influenced his decisions. It might not sit well with everyone, but it's not difficult to understand why he made that choice. Still, understanding it doesn't mean agreeing with how it played out. Because from a team perspective, having a goalkeeper performing below his best level carries massive consequences. Every defensive action starts from that position. Every save can change the outcome of a match, and any limitation becomes immediately visible. When you combine that with the pressure of competing for trophies, it becomes even more critical to get those decisions right. Looking ahead, it's hard to see a scenario where Schmeichel returns to play for Celtic again. His contract situation, combined with the length of recovery, makes that outcome seem increasingly unlikely. Even in the most optimistic timeline, he'd be returning at a point where the club would already have moved on. That reality brings a certain finality to the whole situation, whether it's officially confirmed or not. But his story might not end there. Football has seen players come back from serious injuries before, sometimes when no one expected it. The road is long, the setbacks are real, but the motivation to prove people wrong can be powerful. If Schmeichel does manage to recover, even just to step on the pitch again somewhere, it would be a remarkable chapter in an already accomplished career. While that uncertainty hangs in the background, Celtic are left dealing with the immediate impact. The focus now shifts to who steps up, how the team adapts, and whether the lessons from this situation actually lead to change. Because if there's one thing this entire episode has highlighted, it's that relying on short-term fixes can create long-term problems. And it's not just about the goalkeeping position either. There are other names in the squad dealing with physical concerns, and the risk of history repeating itself is very real. When you hear whispers about more potential injuries, more players struggling, it adds to the sense that this isn't over yet. It feels like a situation that could continue to evolve over the coming weeks, especially as the season reaches its most decisive stage. At the same time, there are developments happening away from that situation that could quietly influence what comes next. Performances from other teams, emerging players catching attention, and transfer interest starting to build all add another layer to the conversation. One name that's begun to surface is a midfielder who recently made an impact against Celtic, showing composure and quality in a key moment. It's the kind of performance that doesn't go unnoticed, especially when recruitment decisions are already being considered for the future. There's a growing sense that Celtic will need to be smarter and more decisive in the market if they want to avoid repeating the same issues. Bringing in players who already understand the demands of Scottish football can make a difference, especially when consistency has been such a challenge. It's not always about signing the biggest names, but about identifying those who can step in immediately and handle the physical and tactical intensity of the league without needing months to adapt. At the same time, situations like this often create opportunities for others within the squad. When a senior figure is forced out, it opens the door for someone else to take responsibility, to claim that position and make it their own. We've already seen glimpses of that earlier in the season, and there's a feeling that this could now become a defining period for whoever steps into that role on a permanent basis. Confidence, momentum, and trust from the coaching staff will all play a huge part in what happens next. There's also a sense that the dressing room itself will need to respond. Moments like this can either destabilize a team or bring it closer together. When players see what's happened, when they understand the risks of pushing through injuries and the consequences that follow, it can shift the mentality. It becomes less about individual determination and more about collective responsibility, making sure that decisions benefit the group rather than just the moment. And as the fixtures continue to come thick and fast, there won't be much time to dwell on what's already happened. The focus will quickly turn to performances, results, and whether Celtic can maintain their push despite everything that's gone on behind the scenes. Because in football, no matter how big the story is off the pitch, it's always the next 90 minutes that ends up defining everything. And you can feel that shift already, that sense that everything is building towards a crucial stretch where there's no room for hesitation. Performances need to turn into results, and results need to come quickly. Because in a season that's already been filled with unexpected twists, setbacks, and difficult decisions, there's still time to reshape the narrative. But only if the response on the pitch matches the urgency of the situation unfolding behind the scenes. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In a move that has caught even the most seasoned observers off guard, whispers around Glasgow are growing louder about a stunning potential transfer involving Celtic. The club, so often measured and pragmatic in the market, is now being linked with a bold £20 million swoop for a French talent many believed was far beyond their reach. Sources close to the situation suggest that negotiations have quietly progressed behind the scenes, with Celtic's recruitment team working tirelessly to turn what once felt like pure fantasy into a tangible possibility. The player in question, a rising figure in French football, has reportedly drawn interest from several of Europe's wealthier sides, making the Hoops' involvement all the more surprising. Around the city, there's a mix of disbelief and excitement. Supporters who are used to smart bargains and development projects are now daring to imagine something different. A statement signing that signals intent well beyond domestic dominance. While nothing has been confirmed, the sheer scale of the rumored fee alone has sparked debate. Is this a one-off gamble or a sign of a new direction? Insiders hint that the player himself could be intrigued by the move. Celtic's history, atmosphere, and European ambitions may be playing a role in shifting the narrative. It's said that the prospect of becoming a central figure in such an iconic club carries a unique appeal, one that money alone cannot always match. Still, caution lingers. Deals of this magnitude are rarely straightforward, and until pens are put to paper, uncertainty will hang in the air. Yet, if this remarkable transfer were to materialize, it would mark one of the most audacious moments in the club's recent history, the kind that turns quiet speculation into unforgettable reality. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.